FNAF 2 is kind of the fan favourite of the franchise. It always ends up near the top of people's rankings of the series and is looked back on with a lot of fondness by the FNAF community. However, if you've seen my previous videos, which you totally should by the way, you might have noticed that I give out a lot of criticism towards this game. That's not a coincidence, I just really don't like this one. Before I get into why I don't like it though, I just want to mention that I'm going to talk about it with the assumption that you know how it works. I mean, if you're watching this video, then there's a good chance that you were one of the 63 million who watched Markiplier play it, so I think that's a fair assumption to make.
Hello.
Firstly, while I think the general vibe of the pizzeria is really cool, I think the atmosphere is far worse than the first game. The pizzeria in that game was run down, dark, and cramped enough to make it feel like an animatronic was close to you, even if they were on the other side of the building. Here though, the pizzeria is way too big. Like, I do not care if someone is moving around on this side of the building because of how far away it feels like they are from me. I know this is a personal preference too, but the sleek white look of everything doesn't really do it for me. Again, it's a cool look and has a really nostalgic vibe, but it's not really scary or atmospheric. Also, this is kind of unrelated, but I just want to mention it. Why are there black streaks all over the walls? Someone brought this up to me a few weeks ago, and now I can't ignore it. The building is brand new and there's already signs of decay. The pizzeria from the first game didn't have anything like this, and that building was run down and on the verge of closing. Speaking of FNAF 1, I think the animatronic designs in that game were way better than they are in 2. They all look creepy, but in a way that's believable in the context of them being children's mascots. Although, that said, they're only scary looking if you have a fear of animatronics, otherwise they're just kind of uncanny at most. The toy animatronics from 2 though, yeah, no, they aren't doing it for me. I understand Scott was going for an eerie, pristine kids toy look with them, I mean it's literally in their name, but I think he overdid it and they come across as too friendly looking. I mean just look at them, they're big shiny hunks of plastic, this would only be scary for young children and sea creatures. I do like Mangle's design though, he's by far the creepiest looking out of the toys, and she also just looks really cool. It is kind of disappointing that most of her camera renders just have her as a PNG slapped on top of the room, like the lighting looks so off it's immediately noticeable. More on that, it's honestly a shame how underutilized the cameras are here. There's this cool feature where using your flashlight on an animatronic in the cameras freezes them for a bit, which sounds great but is actually kind of fucking useless. The amount of animatronics coming after you trivializes this feature because freezing one really doesn't help that much when you've still got 5 others rapidly approaching. On top of that, the fact that you almost always need to shine a light into a camera to see someone kind of makes them appear less threatening. In the first game, the animatronics, especially Freddy, were shrouded in darkness, so they always looked a little unnerving no matter where they were. Here though, everyone's got a huge fuck-off spotlight shining on them, they don't look that scary at all, it just looks like you walked in on them making food in the kitchen in the middle of the night. Except for Withered Bonnie, he actually looks pretty threatening just standing there with no face. Remember how each of the animatronics in the first game had pretty distinct mechanics? Foxy requiring general camera use, Freddy needing to be constantly tracked, and Bonnie and Chica showing up at the doors in your office. They're all simple mechanics, but work well together and make good use of the limited cast of characters. Sure, Bonnie and Chica work the same, but that's still 3 separate mechanics coming out of 4 animatronics, and God Freddy I guess, but I don't count him. FNAF 2 on the other hand boasts 11 animatronics, which sounds like a lot of gameplay elements to worry about, especially since Scott himself said he wanted FNAF 2 to be super chaotic. Well, here's the thing, Withered Bonnie, Chica, and both versions of Freddy function the exact same way, coming into your office and making you put on the mask until they leave. Then, Toy Chica, Balloon Boy, and Mangle also work the same way. Granted, there is a slight variation in exactly what they do, with Mangle making an obvious audio cue when he arrives at your event, as well as her and Balloon Boy taking a little longer to get you killed if you let them into your office. I don't really consider them to be big enough differences though, they all go to one of your events and get you killed in one way or another if you don't put on your mask. I class that as the same thing. So that's 7 animatronics sharing 2 mechanics. I don't expect every single animatronic to work completely differently to each other. I mean, this is a point and click game that was made in 2 months, but man, the lack of variety is undeniable. Honestly, I would have preferred to have less animatronics that act more aggressive, because that's pretty much what this is. Withered Bonnie and Chica might as well be one fast animatronic, since by the time they're introduced, you won't have time to track them down separately, for reasons I'll get into later. So they both just kind of blend together. As for the animatronics that do function in a unique way, they're not really that interesting. For Golden Freddy, you put on your mask when you see him in your office and don't use your flashlight in your hallway, except that's never explained to you. Withered Foxy, you just flash him in the hallway when he appears, and can I just say it is so dumb how the game makes you use the keyboard for one gameplay function, that being the flashlight. It just feels like an excuse to jam keyboard controls into a game that would work fine with only a mouse. Just let me use that to flash the hallway since I already use it to flash the vents. No, I'm not just complaining because my keyboard is faulty and disconnected loads during my playthrough, getting me killed multiple times. What gives you that idea? And then there's these absolute pricks. Let's start with Toy Bonnie. He seems pretty simple, right? He works just like the other vent animatronics, except he causes a blackout before he leaves. Why is that an issue? Well, instead of starting the blackout upon putting on the mask, he has a 50% chance every half a second to start it. That means he can start the blackout at any time, ranging from immediately to never. This is mainly an issue because of, you guessed it, the puppet. I'm gonna be honest, I fucking hate the puppet. Why is there a time-based mechanic in a game where you spend most of your time waiting? All this does is stop you from looking at any other camera from Nightfall onwards, and sometimes puts you in unwinnable situations. If you've already went through a blackout and then Toy Bonnie takes a little too long to start one of his own, you're dead. There's nothing you can do. You already knew that though. This is a surprisingly common occurrence on night 6 or god forbid 1020 mode. You know, I've always found it funny how this mode is extremely luck-based and unfair despite it being an intended challenge in the custom night, while 420 mode from the first game is completely fair and winnable every time if you know what to do, and Scott didn't even think that was possible. Sure, you could minimize the RNG by using exploits like -7 or just something like the right vent camp strat, but I don't want to pull out a stopwatch just to play FNAF, goddammit. Anyway, that's basically all I want to say. Do I hate this game? No, not at all. I just think there's a lot of issues with it, which is why I don't view it as highly as the rest of the games. That said, I am also someone who enjoys playing through Security Breach and got the platinum for it, so take that how you will. In conclusion, the best FNAF game is actually FNAF World. This isn't up for discussion, bye bye.